Well, good evening and welcome to the Lower Makefield Township Ad Hoc Property Committee meeting. My name is Dennis Stedman, the chair. It is January 11th, 2024, and our first meeting of the year. We have an agenda laid out for the year. I'm sorry, for the evening, and we've wrapped up on the first assignment that we had, or the assignment we had in 2023. In developing a master plan for the Patterson Farm. So in 24, we'll be off to probably some new directions and projects with maybe a tentacle back into that topic if appropriate. If I could, let me share my screen for the agenda. Is that visible to everyone?
Yes, it is.
Very good. So I'd like to call the meeting to order, and the first order of business is to approve the minutes of the December 14th meeting. And so I'll turn it over to our secretary, Bette Savini.
Thank you, Dennis. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
The minutes of December 14th meeting were distributed, and are there any corrections? I think there were some, but I think they were made. So a revised version was sent out, including Joe Juransky from Sailor Brewery. Any other changes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Seconded.
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Back to you, Dennis.
Thank you, Bette. Meeting minutes are approved. The main topic of discussion is our how we'll organize ourselves, and for 2024 there'll be some structural changes. Obviously, on the agenda, as you can see, is a welcoming to Dan Grenier, our new board supervisors liaison. We'll do that once Dan is able to join. But right up front, we need to thank all of the invited stakeholders that were active in this Patterson Farm Master Plan planning project. It was a large undertaking involving a lot of moving parts, and we want to thank all those invited stakeholders for their extraordinary input. We received input from stakeholders in all directions, from many types, but we had identified some key ones that we invited into the Zoom meetings as a formal part of the meeting, and we hope and expect they continue to participate in these meetings, as would the general public at any other time. But we want to thank, as you can see the list there, AOI. Bette was doing double duty on both the committee and representing the AOI stakeholders. Charland Farms, Tim and Sam Stewart. We had a number of conversations and involvement with Tim and Sam over the planning period. Very appreciative. Kevin Gallen from the Environmental Advisory Committee attended, I think, every meeting or nearly every meeting. Really appreciated the input from that group. Steve Hines from the HARP, for the Architectural Review Board. That was an important voice and stakeholder in the process. Of course, Joe Camarada also doing double duty as a member and representing the Historical Commission. Really appreciate that. Jeff Herco, I think, attended every meeting. I don't think he missed any. Representing Patterson Farm Preservation, we appreciate that input. We had resident ambassadors developed, and Emily Hiller represented that group after our meeting at the Jenny House. That was important voices and input to the process. And of course, Colleen Atara from her studio as a tenant there. So we want to thank those invited stakeholders. Now that the project is over, it's not necessary for them to log in, but as I said, I hope they continue to follow the progress of Patterson Farm and this ad hoc committee. I also want to particularly thank Ron Schmid for heading up our community outreach and engagement subcommittee, ably served by Fred and Bet. We recognized in this public planning process the importance of the community outreach and engagement, and did an excellent job and had a number of initiatives that really had an impact on this process. So we really benefited from that extraordinary effort. Because the ad hoc property committee, and I'm operating on some presumptions here that could be proven false, but the operating presumption that we have is that the ad hoc property committee will continue as it's structured and as it's chartered. And the Board of Supervisors will be giving this committee a new assignment to address a property in the township that needs some strategic look, some alternative attention to try to decide a direction. We do not have that assignment, and like I say, I'm presuming that is forthcoming. I know it's been a topic of some discussion at the Board of Supervisors without a definitive conclusion. Perhaps when Dan joins us.
I'm on, Dennis.
Oh, Dan, you're on. Very good. Oh, Dan, welcome. Sorry, I didn't see it.
I just didn't have my video on. I was trying to make sure my ears were working correctly. I got some new earbuds.
Well, working ears are important too. So
this is true. See if that
Dan,
works. There we go.
Welcome to the Ad Hoc Property Committee. We're pleased that you can join as our liaison this year and provide the kind of guidance that I'm sure we'll need. I don't know exactly when you came on, but I said I was operating on a presumption, and you can confirm or deny this, that the Ad Hoc Property Committee will continue more, as it's currently constituted, and will take on a new assignment in 24 with the completion of the Patterson Farm Master Plan recommendation that we made. Am I operating on a fair premise?
The best I know right now, Dennis, and I'm being completely honest with you, is we're going to be talking. The board is, from what the whole board, we've been talking about this, is to figure out what the next steps are for the committee. If it'll be a single assignment or a broader assignment as it was originally considered.
Right.
If there may be some restructuring based on what those assignments might be and what the needs are,
Right.
Things like that. And then obviously, I don't want to jump ahead anything in the agenda, but also looking ahead at what comes out of the recommendations in terms of next steps specific to the Patterson Farm plan, future potential committees,
Right.
looking into I know we don't have much feedback yet from our township staff about potential 501c3s, whether existing or newly formed. So all of that will come into play in terms of this particular committee or offshoots of this committee. And it's all really, balls are up in the air right now, from what I understand. So still TBD.
Okay. All right. That's consistent with my understanding, and so we'll remain flexible. We did on that topic, which I think is an important topic before we move on to nomination and election of officers, has to do with the charter of the committee. So if I could, let me just back up a smidgen for your benefit, Dan, primarily, and that is, hang on. I'm gonna bring up the. I want to share screen again and bring up the agenda from an earlier meeting where this was the topic. Let me see if I have it from our December meeting, because I think it'll help with the discussion as you engage in that discussion with your fellow supervisors. And this is simply the agenda from December, and what the committee discussed at that point was we envisioned two options. We weren't necessarily making a specific recommendation as to which one, but just to have the discussion. To transition this committee into what had been recommended earlier as an implementation committee to help support the implementation of the Patterson Farm Master Plan, support the implementation of Phase 1. Such a committee would be redundant and unnecessary and would be phased out as soon as a nonprofit to manage the the property is identified. But we thought with the recommendations that it be managed, the property be managed by a community-based nonprofit with historical preservation orientation, that perhaps keeping a committee like this or some other committee engaged with the township as they implement Stage 1 could be a good on-ramp to transition to the nonprofit. That was the thought. So
it's very logic. It's very based in logic. I'll say that.
It is.
Yeah.
And because of the experience and that this group had gone through, one scenario was to transition this group into that implementation plan, or alternatively, to keep the ad hoc committee to take on some other property assignment unrelated to Patterson Farm and form a new committee. We were labeling it temporarily as the implementation committee to basically play that same role. And that those committees could be made up, names and membership could switch back and forth or change appropriately depending upon the decision. So that was the logic that we were deploying. And so that's what we talked about with Suzanne in December. Just so you're comfortable with that.
And she shared this I think I've seen this particular bullet point right here, probably from Suzanne.
Okay.
So this is not unfamiliar to me. So like I said, I think we need to get feedback from staff in terms of what they've been able to understand about existing and honestly our solicitor too, about existing versus potentially new nonprofit set up for this purpose, and what the overlap may be, so that we don't want too many redundancies and people stepping on toes wherever we can avoid it. You know what I mean? And that's really all it is. But I think the concepts are obviously very logical. So I think that's what we'll be talking about over the course of the next month or so.
Okay. So we'll wait for direction from the Board of Supervisors on that.
And I'll poke and prod to make sure they keep moving on it too, so they don't let it sit.
Yeah. Thank you. Actually, I think the committee, I'm speaking only for myself, we kind of enjoyed a little pause. It was a fair amount of work, so having a little lull doesn't upset anyone, I don't think. Now, any other discussion on the ad hoc committee directions, ideas about an implementation committee, that type of thing from anyone else on the committee? We've discussed this before. Any new thoughts that we want to bring up? Okay, hearing none. Let's go back to the agenda if we could, and really at the beginning of the year, it's important that we have a nomination and election of new officers for 24. And I think I've told all of you I'm willing to continue to serve, but do not want to serve in a leadership role. I'd like pass that baton to someone else. So starting with the chair, are there any nominations, volunteers for chair of the ad hoc committee for 24?
Yes, if I may,
Great.
before we get too far down that road, and since you had mentioned some thank yous early on in the beginning of the meeting, I think we all want to say a big thank you to you in particular for taking this on. I know you weren't necessarily keen on starting into this whole process, and it's taken, I'm sure, a lot more of your time and over the last couple of years, but we really appreciate it. I think you've done an excellent job over the years in keeping this moving forward and maintaining the progress and overseeing all of the various elements involved and all of the different perspectives and people that have stakeholder in this process. So again, just on behalf of everybody else, I think, and I'm sure everybody else can chime in, but thank you very much for everything you've done over the last couple of years.
Thank you for saying that, Fred. You're more than welcome. It's work, but it's also pleasure. It's good to solve problems. That's kind of a hobby. So
My other thought is in terms of officers, since I know John and Jim have indicated that they are stepping down as well. So we would have two vacancies in the committee. We have a couple spots that they filled very aptly over the last couple of years in terms of finance and real estate expertise. And I think the original resolution called also for an actual a member. I know we had a member from the EAC as an invited stakeholder, but I think the committee itself was preferably looking for a member from an EAC or someone who's had that experience. So I think with those vacancies and with yourself wanting to step back for now, I would propose that we hold off until we see if there's other potential members who could fill those key roles on the committee. And certainly in terms of continuation for the coming month or so, I would certainly be willing to continue as vice chair and ask if Bet would also hang in there for a month or so to continue at least as our official secretary and at least keep the process moving as needed. But my suggestion is that we hold off on, if we can, hold off on the actual election this month.
well, you're right. And John is on, so John, you can speak for yourself. But both John and Jim have stated their intention to step down, but are both willing to stay on for a month or two to build a bridge. So, John, let me not put words in your mouth.
No, yeah, I'd like to say I would like to thank you all for having me on the committee, but I think it's time that I step back. I will stay on the committee until a replacement is found to make sure we have a quorum and we can keep the process moving.
Thank you. And Jim, who can't be here, said he is also willing. His third child is due in February, and things are, time pressure's getting up there. But he said he would agree to stay on for a month or two until we can find a replacement as well. And in the founding resolution, it is very specific that there be two individuals who are qualified as financial professionals. John fit that bill, and I fit that bill. One of those boxes would be open with John's departure, and another specific element in the resolution was a real estate agent or broker who's a Lower Makefield resident, of course, or someone equally qualified, and Jim Scott as a real estate attorney fit that bill for our committee. So we have to fill those two specific slots unless the committee is redefined in some way. And I wholeheartedly endorse, if we can get someone from the Environmental Advisory Committee on. But specifically, we do have two professional requirements there by that resolution, and unless Dan, the Board of Supervisors, are want to modify that, that would be the assignment to fill.
Yeah. So Dennis, if I may, the way we would typically for any advisory committee that's out there, right? When someone's time is up, where they step down, they should, if they haven't already, they should notify the township manager, but officially via email, saying, hey, by whatever date I'm going to be stepping down. That allows the township manager to publish, that we have, kind of like we've done with HARB, is something similar in terms of having specific requirements, right?
Right.
So we would advertise for folks to see if they'd want to volunteer for the committee based on whatever those specific requirements are that we're now missing. So and then we would, the board interviews and then appoints to the committee. If I just spent last year as the liaison to the EAC. I was formerly on the EAC before as a supervisor 7-8 years ago. So, and actually in the resolution, we're supposed to have someone with environmental professional background on the committee as well.
Which we do.
Who's that? I don't know anyone that had.
Bet worked for the New Jersey EPA her entire career. Bet you want to Bet checks that box.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had professional credentials as an environmental scientist.
Not an environmental scientist, environmental planner.
Okay, I don't believe that's how the resolution was written, but that's fine. Okay. I was the one that wrote it, and that's fine. So we should look into all of those boxes to make sure we check them all correctly, and then see if we need to. Obviously, if we're reconstituting, that may be revised as well, as you were alluding to before.
One other comment, Dennis, I meant to say that a number of us, I think, I believe I speak for a number of us who are more keenly interested in the progressing the Patterson Farm in particular. And if there were to be a separate or a subset, a separate corp committee or a subset of this committee, that there may be a number of us who would prefer to concentrate and focus on that particular property rather than whatever others that the board may ask us to do.
Yes, fair point. These are all volunteer committees.
Yeah, and the complexities of that, based upon this conversation, are would the implementation committee be a separate committee, which I would certainly advocate for. I don't know how the supervisors feel, from the ad hoc property committee, and therefore two separate sets of leadership would be required. Because I think the skill set is different, and the assignments would be different. And if I might, implementation is going to be a lot about the plan that we submitted and moving the ball forward, getting the 501c3 in place, and keeping that ball rolling. Whereas an ad hoc property committee is going to be thinking about the things we thought about a year and a half ago. So it requires a different skill set, I think. And therefore would probably argue for two separate committees, but I don't know how the supervisors feel about that.
Generally, we have a lot of committees. I'll say that. But for whatever purpose, we have a lot of committees. And one of the issues with having a lot of committees is making sure one, we can fill the seats. Sometimes we'll have difficulties with getting enough seats to have a quorum that can.
Yeah.
I don't think this one will necessarily have that issue, but that is a common issue with others, as Joe knows from some previous meetings that he was in. We sometimes have 2 or 3 folks show up for other committees, and we weren't able to do some good stuff, but we weren't able to have votes in certain things and all that. So we want to make sure that we do it in a way that we can be productive, right? But to your point, Ron, there's possibly different skill sets, and they're just different phases, like you said,
Yeah.
stuff you were thinking about a year ago. So, and there's different properties involved that may require even different skill sets depending on what those properties are. So, I do anticipate that the board will take this up pretty quickly. I hope nobody sits on it, because we want to move this. Personal opinion here, we want to keep pressing forward as much as we can. As you all know, we're in light of budget items that have come up over the course of the last several months. We're trying to do it in a way that's also very efficient and budget friendly.
Sure.
So we're trying to build that into the overall plan as well.
So Fred has made a proposal that we hold off on nomination and election of officers until the pending or future committee vacancies are filled. How do others feel about that? Let's discuss that for a moment. Opinions?
I think I stated my opinion, Dennis. I think the there are 2 separate groups, and should probably leadership should be for 2 separate groups.
Yeah.
Unless there is a subcommittee of the ad hoc committee, which is the implementation committee.
Right.
And then it gets a little squirrely with all those different names and subcommittees and committees and stuff. But to Dan's point, we don't want to straddle the supervisors with too many committees to be managing here and bringing proposals forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do agree with Ron's comments that I think there are separate skill sets for the 2 committees, especially for the implementation committee. I think it's a set of skills that are going to be around, getting the property. I mean, certainly there's setting up the 501c3, but I'm thinking about some of the things that we put into the budget with regards to remediation and getting the painting done and all of those things, which are going to need, skills also for people with historical backgrounds. So those properties are treated as historical properties should be treated. But Dennis, to your question around the leaving the chair position open, or to Fred's recommendation, I think that would be beneficial, because it would allow the township to also state that they're looking for a chair for the committee, and that might attract a different type of person than just the professional credentials positioned.
Fair point.
Good point.
Fair point. Yep.
I agree with all y'all.
Okay. I mean, it certainly makes sense, since the kind of the charter of the ad hoc committee, and whether there's a separate committee, et cetera, are a bit in flux right now. I would support we postpone nomination and election of officers, that we continue as we're currently configured, until such time as we get specific direction from the Board of Supervisors. I mean, maybe there will be a different set of requirements for one committee or another in terms of professional backgrounds or capabilities, et cetera. So I would support we stand pat until such time as we hear otherwise.
Well,
Does that make sense, Dan? Is that?
Yeah, in terms of rules or anything like that, you're not breaking any rules by doing that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if you all can reconstitute or reassign, re-vote on things at any time, really.
Yeah.
It's just customary to do at the beginning of the year, but it's not, there's nothing in the charter that I understand. Only the supervisors have to do it every year, I
Right.
think, and maybe a few others, but that's about it.
Do we need to formally vote on this, or is that?
You could make a
Make a motion.
you can make a motion without having to go one by one. If you want to speed it up, you could just make a motion to keep. I think you could make a motion to just keep the officers as presently
Well,
stated.
yeah.
Yeah,
but my intent was to let Dennis retire.
no, he can still do that. So, sorry to interrupt. So, if Dennis decides to either, for example, when Fred Weiss left the township and he was chair of the board of supervisors, right? He essentially retired, and that meant there was an open chair position. So you can either have the vice chair move into that position just to make it simple. In if you did something at Dennis, then you'd have to find a new, new vice chair or something like that, or you can just use that as an opportunity to vote on all. It's you can do any of that stuff. It's not a big deal for this committee.
I mean, quite frankly, if the committee's in this state of a little bit of limbo, I don't mind just continuing with the officers as they are, and as soon as we get some direction, I'm comfortable with the township, advertising there's a chair, the chair position is open, and I'll step out when the committee is formed and the replacement is found. I mean, I'm willing to build that bridge. The intensity of work during the master planning was enough for a while, but
Dennis, can I
this
ask
will be easier right now.
ask a clarifying question? So we know John, it sounds, and anybody please correct me if I misspeak here. It sounds like John and Jim are stepping off the committee completely. Is that correct? So that's 2 spots. And
Yes.
then Dennis, are you planning to step away entirely, or would you still like to be a member but not the chair once things get situated?
I'm willing to serve as a member, but not the chair.
Okay. So we would still, so officially we have two seats will be open. If you're going to stay on to fill John and Jim's roles, as it were right now. So we'd be advertising for 2. I just want to make sure that our township manager knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So we can advertise for 2 positions, technically the roles that John and Jim filled in the by the resolution. And then once those 2 seats are filled at any point, and as
We'll
when
have
the
election of
supervisors
officers.
interview, we can think of if someone sticks out as potentially being a chair material. We don't make that vote, you guys do.
Right.
But
Yeah, I was going to say, or a current member could
exactly.
step up to be chair. Right.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm clear as to what I'm going to relate to because we have our meeting on Wednesday next week. I think we'll be probably having the official vote to accept the plan that's been recommended for approval. I think that's going to be on the agenda. I'm not 100% positive.
I was told it will be as well.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain
so.
it will be. So
Yeah.
I'm not. And then from there, we'll have that, and then things will then that'll force the conversation on our end to try and speed things up. So
yeah, and I think most critical in my mind, more critical than sorting out and filling the positions in ad hoc is the decision on the implementation committee, because I do think that we have momentum on the Patterson Farm project and initiative, and it's kind of live and on stage, and I think some public committee involvement in that would help keep it that way and help build that bridge to the 501c3. So that would be my recommendation, is that's pretty important, more important. If the ad hoc didn't take on a new assignment for 6 months, I don't think it would matter. But if the Patterson Farm project's kind of languishes a little bit for 6 months, I think that would matter.
Yeah.
So just as a relative priority.
And I would, Dennis, just declare my interest would be to serve on the implementation committee.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good discussion. Good discussion. I appreciate that. Thank you for all the input from everyone. So I think the minutes will show that the officers are staying in their current role. I don't think we need particularly motions on that. Anything else on that before we go to other business? Hearing none, is there any other business that has come up that needs to be addressed we haven't already covered? And this is also our warning to the public, if there's any public comment, to begin to dial in so that we can have a good connection. No other
Dennis,
business? Yes.
Dennis, I just would like to ask Jim Majewski to please find that resolution and send it to us. I was just searching my emails and I couldn't find it from 2021 when the committee was founded.
I have that.
You have it? Okay.
Sure, I could email it to you. It's signed, I forget by who, but I know there's a John Hancock at the bottom of it.
Okay.
Because I just looked at it for this meeting to remind myself as what the
All right. So if you could send that to me, because I can't
Sure.
find it.
Sure.
Thank you.
No worries.
And I believe it was updated or modified at some point because it was there was something that I think needed to be
There was
I think it was because it was geared to a report in 2022, and so I think maybe the dates were changed to extend that or make it more generic in terms of scheduling and all. So I think there was an updated version.
Well, if that's the case, but let's go with your original idea. Get it from the township. Jim, if you could send that final resolution out. I know I have the original, but I shouldn't be the source of those things. So if there's an updated version, Jim, could you send that around?
I will do that in the morning.
Thank you.
And the original as well.
Yeah, I'd imagine that I'd have to send both. So thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Did maybe Jim also we could ask what the status is on the I know you were waiting for some more testing on the Patterson Farm.
I believe that's supposed to be wrapped up in the next week or two with the reports. So as soon as I get that, I'll disseminate it to everyone.
What is that testing for? I missed that.
They did additional soil sampling
Okay.
out there. So once we get the official report on that, I will send it out.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Anything? No? At this point, I would open it up for public comment. John, do we have anyone on the line?
No public comment online.
No public comment. The kind of topics we've discussed this evening aren't the juiciest for the public, that's for sure. And now we're gonna have a presentation on Robert's rules. No, anything else? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Can to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor? Very good. All right, thank you all.
Thank
Happy New
you.
Year, Dan. Welcome aboard. Look forward to it.
Well, happy to be here.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay. Take
Have a
care.
good evening.
Good night,
Yeah.
everyone.